I have a guest with me today. His name is John Hollingsworth. His mother was the pastor out of the Methodist Church, where our museum is now, years ago. Not that many years ago. And then his father was Brunson Hollingsworth, a well-known lawyer out in the county.
And troublemaker, yes.
And troublemaker, that's what I heard. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
But anyway, he's written a book called The Battle of Blackwell. And probably nobody's ever heard of the Battle of Blackwell. But I'd like to turn the mic over to John Hollingsworth to talk about his book and a way to get that book in the future.
Well, thank you for having me, Bernard.
Well, thank you.
It's a great pleasure. And, I've got a second edition has come out with some additional material. And I'd like to thank all of the people who have helped me put this together. Betty Olson, who is no longer with us,
right, yeah.
but was one of our cultural gems here in
Yes.
Jefferson County, started this project. Yeah, there was a battle at Blackwell at a railroad bridge across the Big River, about 6 miles south of DeSoto. Why Blackwell, of all places, which today is in the middle of nowhere, but during the Civil War, was a very important place. There were many modern inventions used for the first time in the Civil War. It was at the beginning of our Industrial Revolution, and a lot of new devices were employed to kill one another in that terrible conflict. There was the telegraph and the submarine, the ironclad steamship, was invented and used for the first time, and repeating rifle. And one of the most important of these new inventions was the railroad. At the very beginning of the war, the Union Army in St. Louis seized all the railroads in the state of Missouri. And they seized the freight yards and the engines and the rolling stock. And by holding the railroads, they were able to hold the state of Missouri. They were able to send out troops on these trains to these isolated parts of the state. They had a railroad that reached from St. Louis to Rolla. And down at Rolla, at the end of the railroad, they built a fort and a Union garrison to control central Missouri. They had a railroad that went out to Sedalia, and they occupied Sedalia with an army garrison. If you look at a map, you can see these railroads spread out like the tentacles of an octopus almost. And by holding the railroads and the rail heads with Union garrisons and fortifications, they were able to hold the state of Missouri in the Union. I like to say that the railroad tracks were the iron shackles that held our state in the federal embrace.
Right, now we're done.
Now, the Missouri rebels, they didn't have any railroads to supply them. So all the rebel operations here in the state of Missouri had the character of a raid, because the rebel forces had to keep moving in order to get their forage and their food and feed themselves. But the Union soldiers could stay put and have their food and ammunition and reinforcements brought them by a railroad train. And this led directly to the Battle of Blackwell. The rebel armies had to cut these railroads. If they could cut these railroads for any length of time, these Union garrisons outstate would wither on the vine. They would be cut off from food and ammunition, cut off from reinforcements. So to break these railroads was the whole Southern strategy. Now these railroads, for example, our railroad right here in Jefferson County was at that time the Iron Mountain Railroad, and it went from St. Louis all the way down to Pilot Knob, and the big iron mine that gives the railroad its name, the Iron Mountain Railroad. And at Pilot Knob was a big Union garrison and camp and fortifications, still well worth a visit to this day.
Fort Davidson?
Yeah, Fort Davidson.
Great place.
Wasn't there at the time of this fight, but they were dug in pretty good. And to roust those Union boys out of southeast Missouri was the job of the Confederate commander of the military district of southeast Missouri, a real cartoon character named Jeff Thompson, also known as the Swamp Fox, and a very interesting character. Holding the railroad was Ulysses S. Grant. In August of 1861, Grant was still just a colonel. He was 39 years old, about 5'6", weighed 139 pounds, little fella. And Colonel Grant was sent to fortify the Iron Mountain Railroad. That was his job. The first thing Grant did, Colonel Grant, was ordered the telegraph line run from DeSoto the rest of the way south to Pilot Knob. And then he began posting garrisons at every railroad station along that route. And from those stations, patrols were rotated to guard all of these bridges. There were 13 wooden railroad bridges in Jefferson County alone. And they all had to be guarded because, alas, there was another new invention that appeared in the Civil War, and that was the phosphorus match. Any Confederate rebel arsonist with a box of matches in his pocket could immobilize thousands of Union troops simply by burning one of these wooden railroad bridges. And so they all had to be guarded, physically guarded by Union soldiers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And Grant set all of this up. He also began the construction of some redoubts, small forts within musket shot of each of these wooden railroad bridges. This was in the very summer. Grant was promoted, as many Civil War heads know. He was promoted in September. They gave him a Brigadier General's commission, made him a 1-star, and they sent him off to do other things. But the railroad through Jefferson County was now the target of Grant's opposite number, the rebel general, Jeff Thompson. And his job was to burn them railroad bridges, cut off that Union garrison down in Pilot Knob, and drive the Union Army back out of southeast Missouri. And this is the reason why there was a fight down there. It's a good story. It's our story. Many of the families that were involved on each side are still here. And I've had a wonderful experience with people, local people, bringing me material to extend this story, just as you rely on local people to bring materials to the museum down in Victoria.
Right.
It's been a lot of fun. I had a good success with the book. It is a second edition now for sale at Riverbend Bookstore on Truman Boulevard. They've just opened up the Myers, and they're doing a wonderful job. The little bookstore like that is a local cultural gem that we need to keep going, like your museum is a cultural gem, like this radio station is itself a great asset for the community culturally. And we have a good story to tell here in Jefferson County, Missouri. It is the story of us. And we're all vain. We like to hear about ourselves. And this is a story of Jefferson County in the Civil War. And I hope people will take a look at it and enjoy it. I've got a few minutes. Could I tell you a little bit about the battle?
Please do. Yeah, you're talking about the railroads being so important. I am a member of the Sons of Union Veterans, the Fletcher Camp.
Oh, you are?
I have been for years. I'm kind of a silent member. I pay my dues and things like that and watch what they do. Not real active with them, but they're a fantastic group. I love the group. And, you know, I support them as best I can. But I'm in that group through my great-great-grandpa, Jacob Laban. And he was upper 30s, maybe early 40s during the Civil War, and he enlisted. And since he enlisted, they said that's more than likely why he was able to stay around St. Genevieve where he lived. Just like you're saying, he was living right there, but yet they suspected that he was there because he was guarding a bridge. So when you're talking about guarding the bridges, I thought, yes, that's exactly what great-great-grandpa Jacob Laban was doing, was guarding a bridge during about a 6-month period down there.
Yeah, home guard. Yes, yeah, they used to make the joke that the home guard's job was to guard bridges and steal chickens.
They said he is also the bugler, so I don't know if he just, played reveille every morning by the bridge or what.
Well, he served.
Yeah, right.
And that's what matters in this great crisis.
And he was a German immigrant. I mean, he came from Germany, and he was serving in the United States Civil War, yeah.
Well, our local German families were strong for the Union, right from the very beginning. And most of the Union's strength in this area did come from those first-generation immigrants.
Right.
Strong for the Union. They were opposed to slavery. The Germans believed that 2 hands feed 1 mouth. That was their slogan. And this particular fight, the Union troops guarding that bridge were from Illinois. There was a man named Hovey, Charles E. Hovey, and he was founded the Normal School, a college in Illinois, in Normal, Illinois, up by Bloomington. And he was a great Republican, a friend of Abraham Lincoln. And at the beginning of the war, Professor Hovey, the founder of the Teachers College in Illinois, he decided that he wanted to fight for the Union. And he got a brilliant idea that he, Professor Hovey, would become the colonel of a regiment of volunteers. And all of his faculty members there at the college would be the officers, and the college students would be the rank and file.
Really?
It's very strange. And he founded the 33rd Illinois Volunteer Infantry, which was a regiment of school teachers. Yes, they did things different back then. It's like the famous 7th New York was a regiment of firefighters. Everybody in it was a firefighter from New York City. The 49th Pennsylvania was all coal miners. They all enlisted together. They got enthusiastic. And the 33rd Illinois was a regiment of school teachers. And they were famous. They were called the Brains Regiment. And some people said they were the Cracked Brains Regiment. They were also called the Normal Regiment. And, of course, the other soldiers called them the Abnormal Regiment. And they were the subject of a lot of good-natured teasing because they were a regiment of school teachers. And it was rumored that sometimes they would send written orders back up the chain of command with the grammar and spelling corrected.
Oh, really?
Yes, there were a lot of bad jokes.
Once a teacher, always a teacher,
Right, and lots of school teacher jokes, but they were brave men. They were young college boys. They were progressive, like to this day. If you look at what's happening on our campuses around the country today, you can see that college boys tend to be leftists. They tend to believe in progressive causes. At this time, the big progressive cause was the abolition of slavery. They also supported giving women the vote. They supported tax-supported public free education. All of these were radical left-wing ideas in the 1860s. So nothing much really changes. These college boys are still radical leftists. And these school teachers laid down their books and picked up their guns, and they joined up to save the Union and free the slaves. And it's easy for us to laugh at them a little bit, but they were good men, they were brave men, and they did their duty at the Battle of Blackwell. They were crushed by 2 regiments of rebel cavalry under the command of General M. Jeff Thompson, the Swamp Fox. October 14th, 1861, the first year of the war, Thompson and his rebel dragoons attacked them at dawn and shot the place up pretty bad and burned that big railroad bridge over the Big River. And that was the Battle of Big River Bridge. About 2 hours later, they were attacked in turn by Union forces, Company K, 33rd Illinois, about a mile south on the railroad at the town of Blackwell Station. And these two battles together are known as the Battle of Blackwell. Of course, the people that lived in Blackwell always called it the Battle of Vineland, because Vineland was up there where the bridge was, and the people in Vineland called it the Battle of Blackwell. Okay. And neither of these towns exist anymore except as a mark on the map.
Right.
Some of those railroad ghost towns. But on October 15th, there were 2 general officers and about 400 rebel cavalry that attacked these school teachers and successfully burned that bridge.
Wow.
And the whole topic has been a lot of fun because these are strange characters. Nobody knew what they were doing. All of the men and all of the officers who were making it up on as they went along. Mm-hmm. Nobody knew what they were doing, but they were trying to be good soldiers. They were trying to do their duty on both sides as they understood it. And I don't have a bad word to say about any of these brave men on that day. Right. They conducted themselves as patriots, as they saw it at the time, and I'm proud of all of them. And of course, I dedicate the book itself to the memory of all of those, my fellow Americans, right, who tried to do what was right under terrible pressure, Bernard. Yeah. And people talk about it today with great distance, but at the time, it was right here. It could not be avoided. The terrible tragedy of the American Civil War, right from the beginning, tore this county apart.
Now, you put a monument out there, correct?
Yeah, we did. We raised money from all sorts of people, particularly the service organizations, the VFW, the American Legion, AMVETS. We passed the hat, and we were able to have a granite monument put on the site, I think it was about 10 years ago. Okay. Luckily for us, the county owned a road right-of-way easement. When that old bridge, the road bridge on Wilson's Hollow Road collapsed, okay, the local citizens decided they really didn't want it rebuilt. They liked living on a dead-end road, but the county retained the easement. Right. So I picked up the phone and called Jefferson County Public Works, the road department, and guess who answered the phone? Billy Blackwell. And yeah. And he said, no problem. You can put your monument on that county easement. Yeah. And with the cooperation of local landowners and county government, we were able to dedicate a monument down there, and it can be visited simply by going down Wilson's Hollow Road to where it dead ends. And we were very pleased to get that done, too.
That's great.
Because this is the only game in town for us. Someone, not me, but someone ought to write a larger story of Jefferson County in the Civil War. Our libraries, particularly the branch at Windsor, have a vast store of primary materials and resources. You have some in your museum down in Victoria, and these are interesting stories. And I've loved having the opportunity to tell this story, and I hope you all buy my book.
Yeah.
It's $13, and we're going to have a book signing on July 13th at Riverbend Books. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but
super.
It's well worth reading about. I wish I had more time.
I wish you did too.
I'm grateful to KJFF for having this show and allowing me to be a guest.
Thank you so much.
Interesting. Very good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for setting this up, Bernard.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and telling us the story.
Been my pleasure.
Absolutely. This has been the Jefferson County History Show here on Straight Talk 1400 KJFF.
Down Wilson's Hollow Road to where it dead ends. And we were very pleased to get that done, too.
That's great.
Because this is the only game in town for us. Someone, not me, but someone ought to write a larger story of Jefferson County in the Civil War. Our libraries, particularly the branch at Windsor, have a vast store of primary materials and resources. You have some in your museum down in Victoria, and these are interesting stories. And I've loved having the opportunity to tell this story, and I hope you all buy my book.
Yeah.
It's $13, and we're going to have a book signing on July 13th at Riverbend Books. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But
super.
It's well worth reading about. I wish I had more time.
I wish you did too.
I'm grateful to KJFF for having this show and allowing me to be a guest.
Thank you so much.
Interesting. Very good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for setting this up, Bernard.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and telling us the story.
Been my pleasure.
Absolutely. This has been the Jefferson County History Show here on Straight Talk 1400 KJFF.